Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of Ambient Talkie, a show where we dive into some weird and wacky equipment and wonderful, call it whatever you want, music. I'm Andy from Two Round Robins, and I hope you're ready for a bit of MIDI. So in this episode, I want to present a couple of things. You know, since showcasing NORNS can become a powerful tool also for sequencing different instruments, let's say within your hardware or even within your software. And we're going to use a little device that will make that possible. But before that, I just thought, since I got a couple of questions in regards to MIDI implementation and stuff like that, I just want to create like a little very, very basic way of describing how MIDI kind of hooks up to your powerhouse such as NORNS. Since NORNS functions as a MIDI host, you can connect a standard MIDI controller or a MIDI keyboard just simply with a USB cable into your NORNS and play around with various synth engines that are provided by various scripts. For example, here I have an Akai Professional MPK Mini that's connected to Icarus, which is a super saw synth engine created by the one and only Infinite Digits. And basically, if we go into the menu, we'll always have to take a look at something. Firstly, always go to the systems, find the devices, because we're trying to reach devices, and then go to MIDI. And here you're gonna have all the MIDI stuff that you have connected into your NORNS. Now, for now, we only have MPK Mini 3, which is this device here. However, you can see that there's virtual. Now, this basically works if you use a MIDI grid or something of similar sorts. But for now, we want to use that in this particular channel, we have MPK Mini 3. Now, by default, usually when you load up a NORNS script, it's gonna default to whatever is on channel 1. So whatever you have hooked up on channel 1, and if you open up a script, if you play on that MIDI controller that's hooked up to channel 1, it's going to provide sound. However, sometimes that just doesn't happen. So in order to fix that, you need to go to the parameters and then just find it somewhere in the menu of the script where you want to see what you're doing. So here we have MPK Mini 3 as my Mini in, and I'm using MIDI channel all. I can just clearly use just one and it will work. But you know, by default, if you only have one device, using the all option is not a problem. And by pressing, you can see that we can create sound quite easily on this machine. And you can also use like this thing has an arpeggiator inside of this. You can basically, I can change the divisions and stuff like that. So you can use your MIDI keyboard. If it provides a sequencer, you can use that and then just play with your synth. However, one thing that will go a bit beyond this basic thing, just, you know, hook up your MIDI controller into a script here. One thing that we can take a look is that a lot of MIDI controllers have some sort of outside control that's not officially just connected to whatever pitch shit that you have here. So I'm talking knobs, I'm talking faders, I'm talking little pads, I'm talking like little jog wheels, whatever. There are different ways. And in order for you to use these as something, to do something in the script, there's an easy way. Now with Icarus, specifically, we have like little controls on these knobs, right? You have like your little feedback control here. You have your filter here. and you have your, I think this is just de-pitching the thing here. So like there are different ways, right? However, each and every script has their own little functions in the parameters, or at least most of them do. So what we need to check here is basically we can use any of these in order for to be controlled by, let's say, my knobs here. So let's say, for example, if we want to control low pass filter, so let's say you have NORNS, but it's way over there and you want to use mostly just this, there's a way. If you hold K1 and press K3, this weird stuff happens here. Now, don't worry. This is basically just going to tell you now you're in MIDI learn mode. So if I go to K3 and I want to learn something, I can just press and I'm moving up, and it just basically takes whatever is here and provides it to that. So now if we go here, you can see that this thing basically is connected. So that's quite easy, and you can do this for a lot of stuff. So let's say for resonance, the same thing. So let's say I'm going to use K2 for resonance. I'm going to press learn. I'm learning it, and then if I go here, and you can use that little acid bass type sounds, which to be honest, I rather don't like it. However, that's a way how you can do that, how you can create something like that with just a couple of things. And of course, it doesn't need to be anything special. Let's say just for the sake of it, we can maybe try, maybe, what does sub pitch do? Does that do anything? So let's just, so this is experimenting now. I'm experimenting, okay? So if I press, ooh, I like that. Is this the, sorry, I got lost in there, but as you can see, you can quite easily create something. So if you want to clear it, you can always just clear it. You can go back here and let's say that we don't want this, so you can just clear it and do that. So these are the easiest way how to implement your keyboard or your MIDI controller into using learn mode. Yeah, so let's go to the next stage. So in this example, what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna try using NORNS as a sequencer with any hardware synths. Now in this case, I'm using OP1. I'm using a little, what you call it, a little organ sound here, but I want to see what we can do with this. Now with this example, what we can do is, firstly, I'm just gonna go check here. So we have, okay, we have OP1 on 2, so we just throw it to the second channel here. We can leave it like this, or we can basically change it to just OP1 since we only have this MIDI device for now. And then we're gonna use, let's say, Flora, for example. Now we hear the sound of Flora just coming through, yet we don't hear anything here. So how to do that? Well, it really depends on the script. But for example, if you have some sort of sequencer, there's a very, very high chance that it's gonna use MIDI out as well. So what we can do is we can go to the separator in the parameters menu for Flora, and then go to the MIDI section here. And we have, here we have device for MIDI in. We don't need that. We have device for MIDI out. Now that's the important stuff. And we can output MIDI for the plans or for tinta and plans. And as you can hear, we have them on both sides. We're having audio coming from NORNS here and audio coming from the OP1. And if you want to change that, you can do it via parameters, or you can just simply go here and say, hey, engine, shut up. And we have just sound coming from OP1. And of course, you can basically change it. Now, as you can hear, there's some sort of mangling going on with... Really depends on the sound. So let's just, for example, try changing it to plants. And I see the plants have like quite a gigantic, like it's a higher pitch than usual. So we can change the pitch here, but also one thing that I can showcase, well, not showcase, but at least mention here is this thing. MIDI output in Flora has so output device for plants, but you also have a separate output device for Tinta, for example, and you can do output for plant 1, plant 2. So in this case, if we have had like 3 different hardware synths, we can output them separately, and this would create you know, a very interesting cacophony, especially if you want to implement outside synths. So yeah, this is when it comes to basically using sequencer for hardware. It's a very, very basic example, but it works for whatever you basically need. If your device has a MIDI out that takes USB connectivity, then it shouldn't be any problems. Now, you can even connect two NORNs via MIDI. I have talked about something called Cyber MIDI, where you connect one NORNs to the other using network in a few videos back. And I'm gonna link that in the description so you can check it out. You can see how that is done. However, if you don't want to mess around with networks and running MIDI via network, there's a different way how we can connect MIDI from one device to the other. Now, since these two are both MIDI hosts, using just a normal cable like a USB-A to USB-A won't do much. So you're gonna need something like an adapter that's gonna adapt these messages between them and that they can basically work in tandem. Now, what we can use is, and this is a cool little thing here, this is called to host, and it's made by denki-oto. This is the person that makes the NORNS Shield XL and the DIY grids and all that lovely stuff. So they also made this thing, and this is a very, very small and very, very robust little, I would say, device. Basically, it runs on 2 Qt pies from Adafruit, and like a little circuitry around that, and basically a little code mumbo jumbo. And what it does, it makes connecting two NORNS devices as well as connecting NORNS to your computer quite easy and hassle-free. Now, I took this as a DIY version. It's a fairly easy build, so if you want, if you want to connect these, you can do that quite easily. Plus, this has the advantage of using TRS MIDI connections, so in and out. So if you have like an organelle that only takes MIDI via TRS, or any, let's say, more older hardware synths or something like that, this can be a good little example how you can achieve that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna connect these two to both of those. Okay, so here I have connected two devices. I have my NORNS Shield that's running through Qt or through to host, and it goes to NORNS standard. I'm going to use this as a sequencer. I'm going to use this as my sound source. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use Constellation. So this is Constellation. It's a very simple but very intuitive little sequencer, and then I'm going to use Molly the Poly. Now, things with the thing now is that even if I press this, nothing's gonna happen. And this is something that you'll have to always be aware of, because this thing is also giving sound out, so it's audio as well as MIDI. So we need to do a couple of things here. First, we should check the devices. I have Qt host here, and if I go here and go to, well, where did I go? Why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that. I should go to systems and I should go to devices, MIDI. We have two hosts to host. So, you know, we're connected. It states that we are indeed connected. So next thing that we should check out is basically, let's see what the sequencers is actually giving out. So if we go here, we can see that this thing has inputs and outputs, and now it's outputting only audio. However, now we have MIDI, and it's basically controlling this thing. So if we randomize the parameters in Molly the Poly, it should work. And we can also check the MIDI devices here. So in this case, we do have something, which is awesome. And it just sounds really bad, but you know, that's the cool thing with the Molly the Poly. You can have something that sounds sweet, but also something that sounds like a very, very bad little box of sorts. Okay, so there we go. I think we have showcased how you can connect these particular devices, but there's one thing that I want to showcase more, and that's how we can take this thing and connect it to a computer. So what do we have here? Well, we have a few different things. We have NORNS that's connected to the key, to my computer here via the two host adapter, and we have a grid that basically just acts as a MIDI device for NORNS. So in this case, if we think about it, it's basically sending MIDI from my grid to NORNS, and NORNS is sending MIDI back to the computer. So in this case, we have a device, well, not a device, but a script called Hopscotch. Now, you might seen this because I have used this particular script in one of my jams, and I really adore it since it kind of has this like Steve Reich type sounding rhythmic mumbo jumbo that I absolutely adore. However, since we have it now connected to the computer, we can take a look at the other screen, and here you can see that we have 3 devices that are active, and each of these devices are connected to the Qt host. Now, looking at whatever digital audio workstation that you have, if you have Logic, if you have Fruity Loops, if you have I don't know, Ableton, or if you're a masochist and use Cubase, then sure, each one of these you must first decide which port it's gonna listen to, and then which channel is it gonna listen to. Now, why am I particularly being anal regarding the channels here? Because you can use all, well, because this script has a very cool thing here. If you go to the parameters here, you can basically go here to the MIDI channels. And MIDI channels, you basically state that each voice has a different MIDI channel. You can use up to 16 or up to 8 voices, I'm sorry. And voices are basically these things here, so the sequence of that. So if I press a button, what's gonna happen is that it's gonna trigger the first channel. So in this case, I have a piano. However, if I press another one, this is a guitar, what you call like a little guitar harmonic or something like that. And if I press another one, this is a charanga, which is my MIDI device number 3. And you can basically do this by pressing hold as well, and then maybe like this. And if we go here, we can see that each one of these is basically has a different MIDI channel. So MIDI channel 1, 2, 3, and there we go. So in this case, because we are using only 3 instruments, we can basically, you know, just double it with different voices. So if we would like to add a 5th, we can quite easily create like a little cacophony of sound, and this is absolutely wonderful. So quite easy, you can connect whatever sequencer you have with instruments or with synths that are in your digital audio workstation. And if we take a look at the screen again, we can basically see that it's recording MIDI. It's not recording audio, obviously. You can do that if you reroute it a bit differently in your software. However, it's pretty cool that we just have like MIDI information, because we can basically just move them around and then use different sounds and different synths that are triggered by the MIDI that we're just currently recording. And this can go either way. You can use NORNS to send MIDI devices, or you can use NORNS to be your sound source and then use MIDI from your computer to your device here. So it's all vice versa. It's a great little thing to do. So yeah, guys, I hope you basically enjoyed this episode. That's it when we're talking about basic MIDI stuff on NORNS. We have tried and seen a couple of examples, and I'm just gonna put a few resources where to get this particular thing, and a bit about MIDI in the description if you want to read a bit more about it and, you know, like refresh your memory what we're talking about here. So thank you for dropping by. Thank you for watching. If you want to support me, there are a couple of different ways. Do become a Patreon. You give a bit of money, you get sample libraries, you get a quicker way to experience the videos, you get different audio, and blah 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 blah. If you're not into that, a simple subscribe, a simple like, a simple comment will do, as this will push the YouTube algorithm in the hemisphere, and I'm gonna be a millionaire in a couple of years. But most importantly, do believe me when I say this, have a lovely rest of your evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you might be watching this, and do take care. Till next time.